Hey y'all, I'm Elisa, the Scrappy Wife behind ScrappyWife.com, and it's time to document some of those summer memories. Today I am in my memory planner. I have several pictures from a recent trip to the beach that I am super excited about. So I'm going to use these pictures. I've pulled out some papers from the Hip Kit Club that I absolutely love. So I'm going to grab these. And then I have this mix of ephemera, and I know that there are some beach ones in here. For instance, this definitely looks beach-like. So I'm going to go through, pick some of the ephemera out, and we are going to get documenting. I will link things down below, but mostly I just use stuff from my stash when I'm doing memory planning, and I would encourage you to do the same. All right, let's go. The first step before this desk gets a little bit too crazy is to go through the stack of ephemera and pull out any that I think will go with the color scheme or go with the theme of the beach and summer. And so I'm getting this little stack put together, then I'll move it off to the side, and I know I already have a bunch of ephemera ready to go. We're going to start with this striped paper. One of my favorite things to do with any kind of striped paper, you're going to see me do it all the time, is to just cut along the stripes and divide up the paper across the two spreads, just to make a nice big impact and create a background that I can then build on with the photos and the ephemera. That's what I'm going to do here. I feel like it really sets a good tone for the page. It gives a place for photos to kind of be anchored on. And so I really like doing this, and I do it all the time with stripes. I do it with anything rainbow. I just trim it out and then stretch the pattern across the two pages, almost as if it were already printed like that, to get started before I start putting photos down. And I think that is something that can really set your memory planning apart. Instead of just starting with putting photos down on the page, take a hot second and put some scrapbook paper down in the background, either in big blocks or lines like this. I like to do torn edges all of the time. I just think it adds something a little bit extra, and then you can start adding your different photos and then stickers or ephemera, whatever you choose to add, journaling, things like that. But starting with something in the background kind of elevates the whole feel of the spread. To me, it makes it feel more like a scrapbooking page, which I am all about as someone that used to do a ton of 12 by 12 scrapbooking. This is like hearkening back to those days, and I like that I get that feel of scrapbooking without all the time-consuming nature of a typical 12 by 12 scrapbooking layout. This next part, I'm going to speed up a ton. What I'm doing is cutting apart all of these photos. I've shared recently, I use an app called Print to Size. It is an iOS app that I use on my iPhone that I can print directly from my iPhone to my Epson PictureMate printer, which I love, I've had for years. And it allows me to print 4 photos to a 4x6 piece of photo paper. And so then I just cut apart the photos, and then I really enjoy matting the photos. Rarely do I line up my photos within the vertical boxes of this big vertical spread. I use them more as like a guidepost, a way to kind of almost like a grid in the background, but I don't necessarily align all my photos to those boxes. I'm not particularly worried if they are the exact size of the boxes. It just doesn't bother me. However, I will say that matting the photos gives me a little bit more wiggle room if I am wanting all of the photos to be vertical and completely lined up as much as possible. So matting the photos is a great way to kind of give yourself a little bit more play as far as covering up some of the lines and getting photos in a particular area. So I'm just going to spread my photos around the week. Like I said before, when I was putting the stripes on the page, I'm using them almost like an anchor. That is where my photos are going to be kind of centered around and coming off of. And as I'm figuring out where I want photos to be, I'm also keeping in mind that I'm wanting places where I will be journaling. So I try not to chop up my journaling spaces too much. I kind of keep clumps of white space as I'm putting big elements on the paper. And then I know that I'll be able to add lines and journaling spots within those empty pieces as you can see them kind of forming. So I have that big one over there on the left, over on the right. I'm going to end up with two kind of separate ones. We'll call those more of a medium-sized journaling spot. And I like how it comes together. It gives me an opportunity to tell the story. It's not so much space where I have trouble filling it up, especially at times when I'm a little bit behind on my memory planning and I'm playing catch up. Sometimes I don't have the best memory, and so filling in stories and thoughts and things from this particular week can be a challenge. So I don't want too much journaling space where it feels overwhelming, like I won't have the words to fill it up. Now that the big photos are in place, now I get to do the fun part, which for me is playing with all of the ephemera and the decor. And here are some things I'm considering. I love words. I love using words around the page. However, I want to make sure that they are dispersed evenly around the page. So I started with Let Summer Begin. That seemed perfect. This was the first full week of summer for my kiddos. And then the other word, ephemera, I kind of spaced around the page so that it would have a balance. I'm also looking for odd white spaces that I'm wanting to cover up and I'm wanting to soften the edges. So for instance, I have just some awkward places right there. A little beach ball fills in that odd white space, that trapped white space where I wasn't going to be able to journal. And I'm softening the edges of these photo clusters by putting ephemera around the edges. That's going to allow the journaling lines to go down a little bit smoother and make a little bit more sense and not look so jagged. And then, like I said, spreading out the word stickers, balancing color. These are all things you're considering as you're putting your pieces down on your page. But in the end, I'm going to say don't second guess it too much. When you are laying out your photos and coming up with clusters and putting down stickers, don't second guess it too much. If it looks good to your eye in at that moment, then it's going to look good for the long run in that moment. So I think sometimes we can get almost paralysis of decision trying to decide what should go where. And in the end, it's just about preserving those photos and those memories. So if ephemera is slightly off, if it's a little bit unbalanced, it's not going to be a big tragedy at the end of the day. Now, after I get all of the ephemera placed down, I'm going to go ahead and re-punch the holes for the discs. I use the We Are Memory Keepers disc punch. I say it again, something I say all the time. This is like a must-have if you are a disc punch person or a disc planner person. These work so well, and I use the disc system for a lot of different things, including my memory documenting, as you can see here. So I use this probably on a daily basis. This particular tool is super important. The last step for me is going to be adding the journaling. That means adding journaling lines with my T ruler right here and then filling in some of the stories for the week. And then that is going to be it for this memory planning spread. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Consider hitting that subscribe button as well as the bell notification button. Like I said before, I will link the Hip Kit Club down below. I used to subscribe to them, loved them, and I ended up just pausing that subscription because I had a ton of supplies. And I would always suggest pull things from your stash, especially for memory planning. I think it is really conducive to actually using up a lot that you might have in your stash already. I want to give a huge shout out to all of my Patreon members. They are just the best. It is a fun community of crafty, creative people, and we would love to have you over there. You can find out more about Patreon and some of the perks that you receive by checking out the link in the description box below and starting your 7-day free trial today. All right. I hope that you have a fabulous day, and as always, keep it creative.